Good afternoon, and welcome to the City of Glendale Civil Service Commission meeting for November 13, 2024. May I please have roll call?
Commissioner McGrabian,
Here.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Here.
Commissioner Reen. Here. Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes. Approve the minutes of the September 11th, 2024 and October 9th, 2024 meetings.
We had deferred the September meetings because we didn't have a quorum, so now we have one. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So, just a point of clarification, I think we may need to take them separately.
For the September is what I'm,
Because I wasn't here for the October one, so
no,
I wasn't here for September, so.
there you go. We know
Okay,
what
Taking
to
them
so-
do.
individually.
We know what to do then.
oh, so wait a minute. But who was here for September?
I was.
You were.
Oh.
Let's take the September, right? Ms. Barbiton?
Yes.
September
Yes.
1st.
Can I have a motion for the,
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
of
second.
what? Of September?
September.
Yes, minutes. And you
I
second
will
it?
second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen.
Abstain.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the October minutes?
I move to approve the October minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Abstain.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen.
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. That's done. Great. Next item, please.
Oral communications. I do not have any cards and we do not have calls.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Recruitment and examination report.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is the regular recruitment and examination status report, which represents the current recruitments in process and that our team is currently working on. You'll notice that our team has 43 open recruitments, a slight decrease from our last meeting. This report identifies the division of work that they are assigned in the various stages of the examination and selection process. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Any questions?
No.
So I have a question. So I note that in the page number 8, I see many positions where date was opened, date was closed, and there's written exams, performance exam, and oral exam done. But then on some of them, I don't see it. For example, 9750, 9720, 9754, 9755. I don't see anything about written exam, performance exam, or oral exam, and I note that right above those, right above the 9750, the 9749, for example, appears to be a police captain position, and that shows no written exam, no performance exam, but an oral exam. Is there a reason why some of these other entries are blank? Are they not yet taken place? Because they seem to be closed. The date closed, for example, for the Human Resource Analyst 2 was 10/25. So is that the date closed for people applying? Is that what that means?
Well, different examinations have different exam components.
Right.
So for example, the example you gave, 9750, Human Resources Analyst 2.
Right.
There were fewer than 3 applicants for that examination. So the civil service rules say if there are 3 or less, you can establish the list and move on.
You can establish what, I'm sorry?
The civil service list, the
Oh,
list from which you
Oh, you can
hire.
establish the list off of those 3?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I'm familiar with that. Okay,
So then there are no other examination components.
Okay.
The example that you gave for police captain, well, we did have the oral exam. We are just finishing the appeal waiting process. And so after today, you will see something else populated there. So for
okay.
different examinations, some have written components, some have a performance component and some have oral. It just depends. So the columns are for whatever we need to populate it with, but staff is updating that
So can I,
monthly.
forgive the interruption, I'm sorry. Can I also then conclude, for example, for 9724 and 9725, the first one being police communications trainee, the second one police communications operator lateral, when I don't see a written exam, performance exam, or oral exam, am I to conclude that that must have been a list of 3, and therefore that, whatever that list was, constituted the list, or what's happening with those?
Not necessarily, because there are sometimes within the department that they will put a temporary delay on the final examination component because they're trying to prioritize within their department when they could pull together rating panels and such.
Okay.
So if you would want more information on what it means by requisition number and why certain columns are populated or not, we can provide more data going forward. But just because it doesn't have something in oral exam does not necessarily mean that a list has been established. For human resources analysts too, because that's my position, I just happen to know specifically what happened there.
So, you know, and I don't want to go down, you know, there's a lot of blank slots here, but I'll just use one last example, which was somewhat glaring to me, that 9678 seems to be a police services officer, traffic bureau front desk. That closing date is July 19. That's almost 4 months ago. So what happened in the 4 months? Since I see nothing in the written exam, performance exam, oral exam, I see nothing. So what happens to that? That's 4 months ago.
Okay, now for 9678, I'll have to turn it over to Russ Kwan to explain that particular examination because I'm not familiar with that particular one.
Mr. Kwan?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Russ Kwan, Senior Human Resources Analyst. As it relates to recruitment number 9678, Police Services Officer, Traffic Bureau Front Desk, this is a position that I've worked with the police department to try to prioritize in terms of the order of testing. This is a rather large recruitment group, so I'm having to logistically work with the police department to schedule it. We have a couple other competing priority positions that are also large groups that we have to contend with, so that's the reason why it has been delayed a couple months.
But the delay is not due to you. It's a mutual scheduling, coordinating issue. It's not that you're causing the delay or the department. I would imagine the department would want those positions filled.
Yes, that is correct. However, it's a matter of logistically being able to test over 100 people for multiple groups.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I appreciate your response. I have no further questions. Anybody has any questions still? No? Thank you. Was this something we don't need to vote on this? This is just
Note and file.
information. Note and file. Yeah, thank you. Very well, thank you. Next item, please.
Eligible list established.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the subject before the commission is the regular report that includes all of the eligible lists that were recently established since our last meeting in October. The report includes the total number of applications and the number of individuals that advance through the various stages of our examination processes. Since our last meeting, we have had a total of 16 lists that were established. 5 were open to the public, 7 were given on a promotional basis, and 4 were given on an open and promotional basis. This is also a note and file item. However, if the commission has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. No questions. Next item, please.
Revised class specification and job bulletin, jail administrator.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you for approval is the revised class specification and the open job bulletin for the jail administrator position in the police department. The jail administrator classification, last updated in January 2010, manages critical functions including the daily operations of the jail facility, booking, custody, and release processes, in addition to staff supervision, budget oversight, security, and safety. Additionally, this role is responsible for strategic planning, policy development, compliance with local, state, and federal regulations, enhancing operational efficiency through data analysis. To align with current standards, the Police Department proposes the following updates to the position's job functions and minimum qualifications. For experience, 2 years of management experience added as a desirable qualification. For education, upgraded to a bachelor's degree. These updates aim to attract candidates with the requisite education and management experience to effectively lead jail operations and accurately reflect the position's responsibilities. In accordance with Civil Service Rule 4, Section 3D, the department seeks approval to recruit for the jail administrator on an open basis rather than the promotional basis used for the last exam. This adjustment reflects the limited pool of qualified internal candidates meeting the minimum qualifications and will enhance the candidate pool for a competitive selection process. The open recruitment is aligned with the proposed class specification changes. Per Civil Service Rule 4, Section 17, the eligible list for this recruitment will be valid for 1 year. The Glendale Management Association has been informed of these revisions and, as of the agenda's posting, has not raised any objections. Therefore, we respectfully seek your approval of the revised class specification and open job bulletin for the jail administrator as submitted. We have our HR analyst here, along with our Captain Quintero, who will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I do have a question.
Any questions you have?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure, and what is your name, please?
Captain Quintero.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Captain?
Good evening,
Commissioner,
Captain Quintero.
Captain Rafael Quintero.
Nice to meet you. I'm not sure if my question is for Ms. Adams or Captain Quintero, but the interdepartmental communication that Ms. Adams just read said that the education requirement is upgraded to bachelor's degree, but the job bulletin says master's degree. So I just wanted to know what the actual requirement is as to education.
The
Is it-
master's degree
Is
is
desirable.
a desirable.
Yeah.
Oh, did I not see the word desirable in here? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Thank you, Captain, for being here. Thank you for your service to the city. I had a question. I was reading this on page 13 of our agenda, and it says one of the duties is to ensure compliance with the State Board of Correction guidelines, Title 15 regulations, and other relevant legal requirements. So I was like, well, if I'm an applicant, I want to know what those are. So I started researching them. What are they? And I had a hard time finding them. And I think I came up with an answer, but I may be wrong or right, so I think we should get to the bottom of it and see. First of all, the State Board of Corrections seems to have disappeared, and I found a Penal Code section 6024 that says, any references to the Board of Corrections or Corrections Standards Authority shall refer to the Board of State and Community Corrections. So maybe that's the name of the agency, the board that we should put in this bulletin to make it up to date. That was in, as of 2/12, that changed. Am I right on that point?
You are correct, Commissioner. That was an oversight on my part as far as not stating it appropriately with the BSEC.
No worries. And then I found some standards, not guidelines. So to me, a standard is mandatory. A guideline is perhaps optional or more like a suggestion. So I found Title 15 minimum standards for local detention facilities. Are these the requirements that our applicants and the person that holds the job should be familiar with and know about?
So as far as getting into the technical knowledge for the position of Title 15, Title 15, if you look it up, is a pretty comprehensive code of regulations as far as what we're governed by within our Type 1 jail facility. As long as they have an overall knowledge of jail operations with a basic understanding of how to manage and lead a jail facility, that's what we're going to be asking for.
So I would say then that I don't see guidelines anywhere, though. So maybe it would be better just to say ensures compliance with the State Board of Corrections requirements, or we could just say Title 15. But I think that I think guidelines is not correct. And so far, and I'm not an expert by any means at all. I'm just looking at it, but I don't think guidelines is what we're dealing with here.
And if I understand your question correctly, what you're asking is specifically of those that are going to be seeking the position, that we label it appropriately so they know what to expect during the process?
Right, and I think we can make it broad, but I think guidelines is maybe not correct. So we definitely don't want something that, I don't think there are guidelines. I think in Title 15 is mandates.
It's mandates.
It's not guidelines. And so we can say, and when I read this, I was also like, well, Title 15 is quite broad, and there's many, many things that could affect our facility here. So I was wondering, does this comma, did Title 15 modify what precedes it? Is it modifying guidelines? Or are you saying these, I think that the minimum standards in Title 15 plus additional Title 15 requirements and mandates? So it's just, I think we should, precision and clarity is a positive. It's not going to be the end of the world if we kept it as it were by any means.
Fair enough, and you're asking very appropriate questions, actually very good questions. As far as the specifics of Title 15, that is outside my realm of experience. I probably, similar to all of you, would have to look it up specifically as far as what those standards or guidelines are. But as far as what you're stating, I agree with you.
The good news is I do have experience because I represent the Sheriff's Department and the Custody Division and other law enforcement agencies. And Title 15, based on the cases I've worked on, the Title 15 requirement is every person who is inside a jail cell needs to be visually inspected every 30 minutes, and if there is a mental health suicide watch, they have to be checked every 15 minutes. So when we say Title 15, when we're talking about a jail, Title 15 requirement, that's the first thing that we look at. So the jailer has to know that rule. It's a mandate that you're required to visually inspect the person in every jail cell every 30 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on the type of, if there's a suicide watch. So when I read Title 15, I immediately knew that's what they're talking about. Maybe additional requirements, but the 30-minute observation, as I understand it, is a mandate. So I agree with Commissioner Rin that we should write requirements versus guidelines, because guideline is a recommendation and, right.
Let me interject briefly. I look at this specification, Ms. Adams, and I see page 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 with a lot of red markings, red ink on my copy, yeah? And then I see what seems to be the bulletin, which is the cleaner version of it, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah? So these are not two separate documents. These are identical to one another, except the page 13 through 16 shows what's been deleted that used to be on the job specification back in 2010. Am I correct?
And added as well.
And added as well, yeah.
The job bulletin, beginning on page 17, is what's going to be promulgated to the public.
Okay.
And it
Right,
includes
but
the
then
red.
what is this?
That, what you're looking at, the specification is an internal document to our office, and we use it as a reference to make sure that what's promulgated to the public includes,
Includes the additions and not the deletions.
right, and that we are testing the individuals based upon what the commission has approved. So the commission is approving this document with additions and deletions, and we should be examining qualified candidates based upon the language.
So when I try to track it, so I'll get to this, and it ends with, okay, let me just take a real quick, yes, okay. Yeah, no, I think we're speaking of the same thing. This document is the same as this document, except this document shows to me what are the things that are not contained in this document, and what are the things that are now included in this document.
True.
Okay, all right. Okay, so having that in mind, I'd like to inquire of my fellow Commissioner Ream and also all others here. When I'm reading that I'm reading that section that pertains to Title 15.
What page? What page?
Let
are
me
we
find
talking
it,
about?
let me find it. I'm trying to see, yes, here it is. So it would be either the bottom of page 17 or the middle of page 13. But let's take the bottom of page 17. Develops, implements, and reviews goals, objectives, policies, and procedures for the operation of the jail. Then that word is written over because of the page number.
Ensures.
Ensures, is that what that is?
Yes.
Ensures compliance with the State Board of Correction guidelines, Title 15 regulations, and other relevant legal requirements. And if my fellow commissioner is saying Title 15 should say Title 15 guidelines versus regulations, if the Title 15 is titled as regulations, we can't change the title. But if it's Title 15 guidelines, then it should say Title 15 guidelines.
Well, there are multiple chapters in Title 15.
So what does Title 15
as
say?
Captain told it says, well, it says a lot.
Oh.
It's really extensive. And there are regulations that are in Title 24 regarding the facilities. So to me, just making a suggestion, it maybe ensures compliance with, and then change the name, Board of Corrections. and
BSCC.
What is it, the Board of State and Community Corrections. So we change the name, mandates, including Title 15 of the California Code of Regulations, and just leave it at that. And then it's broad enough, so I think we're good, we're accurate.
Okay,
Everybody should be okay with it, I think.
That's fair
That
enough,
makes sense.
commissioners.
all right. You will make the amendment. Is that- right? There has to be an amendment made now.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, is there any other
I
questions?
do, I'm
Okay, go ahead.
sorry. Captain, I was curious as to why this position is a civilian position versus a sworn position. I don't know why I read it thinking that it would be more appropriate for a sworn position, so my opinion doesn't matter. Of course, I was just curious.
In my experience across the region, you look at similar type facilities, type 1 jail facilities, whether it's Long Beach, Santa Monica, and elsewhere, they are managed by a civilian.
That's really interesting.
So as far as on the sworn side, the management function can be served by other. I'm making the assumption here based on resources and just operational knowledge for sworn personnel, not to say that they can't manage also a jail facility. I think it's better use of a resource. Bifurcating that as far as having a jail administrator, and now it seemed to be becoming more of a norm, I'd say, than the exception.
To have
And
a
you look at organizations, not only across the region, but across the country, we're starting to leverage our professional staff within our organization and placing them in positions that they can successfully manage as well, no different than a sworn manager. You don't need necessarily the sworn skill set to manage a jail facility.
If a sworn person wants to apply, would they be disqualified, or would that be like a master's degree desirable if they have that sworn component?
Well, they wouldn't be eligible as far as this if they're sworn and working
Okay.
for another city. So they would
If they're
have to be, if
sworn
they
and
were
work
sworn
for
and
Glendale,
retired.
yeah, if they were sworn and work for Glendale, could they move into this position?
That is, I'd leave that to an HR question.
I don't believe they meet the requirements, Commissioner.
They don't meet the requirements because they're sworn?
Right.
If
because
if they have the educational requirement,
They would take the position as a non-sworn. They would not transition as a
they
sworn person.
would have to give
they-
up their sworn
Correct.
Right.
rank.
They would no
Okay.
longer work both as a police officer and a
Yeah.
non-sworn person.
And it begs the question, forgive me, Captain Quintero, is this position vacant now?
No, it's expected to
new
be vacant at the end of the year.
Oh, the person is retiring?
So after 20 years of service, we
That's
are
not Bill
losing
Torley
our...
we're talking about,
No,
are we?
No, this is our jail administrator, Mr. Juan Lopez.
Oh, yeah, I know, I'm familiar with Mr. Lopez,
So
okay.
he is retiring at the end of the year to a well-deserved retirement after 35 years of service overall.
And Mr. Lopez was sworn or unsworn?
Non-sworn.
Non-sworn, okay, so we are essentially looking to fill the position that has been occupied by a non-sworn
Correct.
individual for a number of years.
Right.
And like I said, across the region, it is the
That's the
norm as
norm.
far as having. The only exception is your smaller agencies where they have to be a little bit more
Wear
resourceful.
more hats.
Correct, wear more hats,
Yeah.
where you will on a part-time basis have a sergeant or lieutenant overseeing that facility.
I
But
much,
they're
I
not-
much prefer the version you have, personally.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
because you want somebody to be full-time devoted
Correct,
to that
correct.
task.
And this is one of those positions, I'm sure, as all of you are aware, might be low frequency as far as when bad incidents happen, but definitely high risk.
It's a huge responsibility.
Correct.
It really is a huge response. How many cells do we have?
92 beds.
Oh my goodness, that's a big job.
Yeah, we're the third largest in LA County. So outside, obviously, the Sheriff's Department, Long Beach, we're a pretty busy facility, approximately 3,100 people, 2023, that we booked in our facility.
Wow, that's big.
And we're also the nicest. And I know for a fact, because I've visited people
Thank you,
there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we are. If you want to be in jail, you want to be in Glendale Police Department jail. It's a very nice
visited
facility.
I visit jails.
Visit it sometime.
I visit jails too, just not in the same way you're referring.
Better places to visit.
I didn't refer to it as an inmate. I referred to it as an attorney visiting falsely accused, individuals of crimes. That's what I referred to it as. All right. Any other questions?
No
I
question.
have one question. So I'm looking at the chain of command, Captain, the police custody shift supervisor would report to the jail administrator, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then so would a police custody shift supervisor at Glendale Police Department, would they be also performing functions such as maintenance and operation of a jail facility? Would they qualify for this exam?
They would qualify only if they have the commensurate experience. So minimum 3 years of supervisory experience, and then with the 2 years preferred or highly desirable for the management. But as long as they have the education component, in this case being a Bachelor of Arts or BS, and the 3 years, yes, they would be eligible.
Okay, so they do perform those functions though. They do maintain and they do operational component of a jail facility.
Yes.
They do, okay, great. No, that was it.
Any other questions?
I just had a comment. I really liked this, this job posting. It was very well written, and I commend the department and HR department for writing it.
And thank you, Commissioner. I think Ando Vardanian did a really nice job, obviously overseen and assisted by Mr. Kwan, Ms. Adams, but overall, it was a collaborative effort.
It's wonderful. Thank you all.
And you see Ando Vardanian on the front row, ready to step up if you have another question. Any other questions? No other questions? What about that motion, Commissioner Ream?
Okay, I move that we approve the new classification and the bulletin with the following changes. This part, insurance would read ensures compliance with the Board of State and Community Corrections requirements, including Title 15, California Code of Regulations, comma, and other relevant legal requirements.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'm so sorry, I have a question. Is Title 15 including, it says including Title 15, is Title 15 within that, those requirements that you read? Or is it a separate requirement?
How about Commissioner Ream read the motion again?
Okay.
'Cause it said including Title 15. I'm not sure Title
Well, that's a-
15
Well,
is
let's
within
hear it again. Let's hear it again.
That's a good question.
It depends where you put the comma.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on whether the
Put a
comma
comma right
modifies or
after.
expands.
The word including is not in here, it's just a comma, so I
I know,
don't
I
think
added
we
it.
need the word, yeah, I don't think we need including. I think that's not right.
Okay, so a new motion, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Please, please.
We're going to change that sentence. We're going to approve the bulletin and the new classification with the following sentence instead. Ensures compliance with the Board of State and Community Corrections requirements, comma, Title 15, California Code of Regulations, comma, and other relevant legal requirements.
I will second.
But that was an amendment to the original motion that you made, which had a second, which we had not voted on. So it's an amendment to your original motion. We would go to the person who made the second to see if he agrees with
withdraw.
that. You can agree to the second that you made unless you don't want a second anymore.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
She seconded before me. I'll second.
We had not taken any action on that earlier motion,
I
and
know.
that's why we had to take that
I
extra
was
step.
mindful of that. I viewed
Sorry.
the request to make a new motion as a withdrawal of the initial motion by Commissioner Ream. But I should have asked, is he withdrawing his motion? So now he's
It's a friendly amendment to his
friendly amendment, so it's okay.
own motion, yeah.
All right, and it's been seconded. We're good.
No objection there, so you can now vote on it, and
All
if
right.
there's more. Discussion.
Let's take a vote.
Commissioner McGravian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Captain
Thank you, Chairman
Quintero.
Commissioners.
Next item, please.
Revised class specification, Police Records Administrator.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you for approval is the revised class specification for the Police Records Administrator, a management level position, last updated in May 2010. Currently, this role is responsible for overseeing the Records Bureau, which manages all police reports, officer-completed forms, and required data entries into the information systems. The Records Bureau also prepares court filing packets and provides document copies to the public as needed. Additionally, the Property and Evidence Bureau's role, including safeguarding personal belongings of individuals taken into custody and managing evidence for criminal cases, is also included. To enhance the departmental operations and improve service, Police Management proposes expanding the Police Record Administrator's scope to include oversight of the Property and Evidence Bureau. The updated class specification reflects these changes and brings the position description up to date. The Glendale Management Association has reviewed the proposed updates and has raised no concerns as of the agenda's posting. Therefore, we respectfully seek approval of the proposed class specification for Police Records Administrator as submitted. We have our senior HR analyst, Mr. Kwan, here, along with Commander Cheryl Davis Moore, who will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner McGravian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, Police Services Officer Series.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you for approval is the revised class specification for the Police Services Officer Series, which was last updated in January 2021. These positions within the series are non-sworn, non-peace officer roles that perform specialized technical work and provide administrative support across several areas of the police department. To align with the department's current structure, police management is proposing to update the class specification. Additionally, they are recommending changes to the experience requirements for the police services supervisor classification to expand the applicant pool. A bachelor's degree is also being added as a desirable qualification for this role. The Glendale City Employees Association has reviewed the proposed specification and, as of the agenda's posting, has not raised any concerns. Therefore, we respectfully seek approval of the revised class specification for the Police Services Officer Series as submitted. We have our senior HR analyst here, Mr. Kwan, along with Police Services Supervisor Tina Hartunian, who will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question. The job classification for education and training does not state bachelor's degree desired. It's on page 32.
It's not for that. It's only they're seeking it for the supervisor, the bachelor degree highly desirable.
Oh, it's on the second one. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
I have a question on page 32 for Mr. Kwan. As far as experience, it states varies with classification. So is it that every series is gonna have a different experience level, or is it gonna be specifically pertaining to whether they work in investigative services, court services, or in, for example, parking enforcement? Are they all each gonna be catered that way?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Hotamian, to address your question with regards to the minimum requirements citation on page 32, where we say it varies with classification, we're referring to the classification of police services officer as well as police services supervisor. Seeing that both of them are within the same document, the police services officer position has experience being experienced. The experience requirement for this position of police services officer is experience working in public safety agency is desirable, whereas the police services supervisor position has requirement of 2 years of recent experience as a police services officer or closely related position within a law enforcement agency is required.
Yeah, so I saw that on page 34, but my question was, so specific to page 34, since you referenced it, experience working in public safety agency is desirable.
Yes.
Does that mean that even without any experience, because that's a desirable, I would qualify for this specific classification?
That is correct, yes.
It's an entry-level position without any experience.
Yes, that is correct.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Here's another legal update. I think the California High School Proficiency Exam cert has been changed. Now we have something new in California, so should we add that? It's called the California Proficiency Program, and that happened in 2023, so we might have new people coming up and want to apply, and that would be a possibility, if I'm not mistaken.
What page are you on, sir?
I'm on page 32, the GED or CHSPE, and now the CPP is a possibility, I think. So if that is correct, then maybe we should add that. My other question pertains to the Fair Labor Standards Act. This is the supervisor position of this classification is considered exempt. Wondering what our analysis is on that as to exemption, what exemption it is and why it applies. I have the supervisor as exempt, I thought, unless I'm all wrong here.
On page 35, it shows non-exempt.
Oh, non-exempt, okay. We're good. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do, but keep in mind, you just made a modification, so I expect you to make a motion at some point with that modification.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, well, am I right on that? I don't want to propose it if I'm mistaken
Well,
on that also.
Is there such a thing? May I look?
Yeah,
California
absolutely.
Proficiency Program.
Yeah, I'm actually on the California Department of Education website, and it says, the CPP has replaced the California High School Proficiency Exam, CHSPE, established by California Education Code Section 48412. The CCP utilizes the State Board of Education approved HSET subtests for language, arts, and mathematics to measure proficiency. So I believe you are correct.
So,
So I guess I'll move that we approve this.
unless there are other
These-
questions.
This series.
One second, Commissioner Ring, I'm
Before,
sorry.
I think before we change it, it might be appropriate for HR, because I'm sure you use the same language in other exams,
Yes.
to possibly look into it and make a determination whether or not those changes are appropriate,
Citywide.
and then come back to the commission versus the commission having to do the HR work, so to speak.
I mean, if we approve this, then that's what it is.
Yeah, we just have to come back.
Yeah, I'm fine with either way, but I do want to note for everybody, what Commissioner Ream had in front of him, and I took it. It says the CHSPE was the California Proficiency Test from 1974 to 2023, which is what Commissioner Ream shared with us earlier. So that seems, if that is the case, and this is coming from the California Department of Education site, that tells me that CHSPE is no longer the case. No longer the case. It says to request the California High School Proficiency Exam Certification Letter. It says, please complete the CHSPE online order form, but then it says it was the proficiency test from 74 to 2023. I'm fine with us. I don't like to delay approvals. So if there's a way we can approve and also have HR have the luxury of adding, amending
Researching
accordingly,
whether it's appropriate.
according to the recommendation of the commission, if it's to the extent possible, then let's go with it.
Might we go with Commissioner Reen's amendment pending confirmation by the HR department?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that sounds fine. Okay, so, any other questions? We're good? Commissioner Ream, you are the motion commissioner.
Okay.
Make a motion.
I'm not going to do it in a future meeting, that's for sure.
No, listen, I'm enjoying it because at least I know I got you to make the motion. I have Commissioner McGrabian and Commissioner Hatamian to ask the questions, and I can just sit here. It's good.
So the motion would be to approve the series as presented with the one modification, subject to change by HR later on if it determines that we're incorrect in any respect, that we simply add as a education option, passing also the California Proficiency Program, CPP. We want to, just as a footnote, we want to keep those other because previous other applicants may have those earlier ways of satisfying what we called a high school diploma.
I will second.
Roll call?
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
and Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval, Public Works Management Analyst Engineering.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you for approval is the open job bulletin for Public Works Management Analyst position within the Engineering Division of the Public Works Department. This role is critical for researching, evaluating, and analyzing operations and administrative processes related to engineering, including reviewing functions, operational structures, record-keeping, payroll, workload safety issues, expense control, and equipment for the Public Works Department. Additionally, a key responsibility for this position is to apply for and coordinate funding for opportunities from outside agencies such as Caltrans, Metro, Metrolink, and SCAG. Under Civil Service Rule 4, Section 3D, the department requests Commission's approval to recruit for this position on an open basis, as it was last recruited as a promotional position in 2023. Given the specific requirements, there are limited internal candidates who fully meet the qualifications. An open recruitment will help ensure a larger pool of qualified applicants. This open job bulletin is consistent with the class specifications, minimum qualifications. The Glendale Management the Glendale Management Association has reviewed the open job bulletin and has not raised any concerns as of this agenda's posting. Therefore, we respectfully seek approval of the open job bulletin for Public Works Management Analyst, Engineering as submitted. We have our HR analyst here, along with the Deputy Director of Public Works and City Engineer, Sarkis Oganessian, who will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have one question on page 40, and this may be appropriate for HR in regards to the experience. So I read on page 40, 1 year of recent experience in Public Works Department administrative work involving budget and so on. I'm just wondering, does the 1 year of recent experience, at what level? Does it need to state the level? Is it a supervisory level, management level? Because when I read the introduction to the title, this is a management title. And then the intro paragraph on page 38 also states that this mid-management classification and goes into the general supervisory review and so on. I'm just confirming whether or not the level needs to be indicated in the minimum requirements or not. Or was it intentionally left the way it was?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hatamian. So your question is specifically at what level? It's
Yeah.
intentionally left open because it could be at any level. It could be administrative, clerical. This is somewhat an entry level to the management series for the Public Works Management Analyst classification. So it could be administrative as long as they perform those duties related to Public Works.
Got it. Thank you.
Any more questions? I do have a question. I've seen the recent experience only in a few positions, and I didn't mention it the last few times I saw it. I think I only remember one or more times. And as we finished the meeting, I went and really thought about it a little bit more, and now I have strong opinions about it I'd like to share. Is there any reason, before I offer my opinions, is there any reason why this one has the requirement of recent experience?
Public works industry is ever changing. So if somebody has had experience performing or working in a public works department, let's say 20 years, those skills may not be relevant to today's industry, especially when it's engineering. It's ever changing. So we prefer somebody with recent qualifications.
Well, here it says administrative work involving budget, management, organization, personnel, project manager, or other related functions. So it's not engineering. These functions don't change in terms of, time. And the reason I have a problem and strong opinions about the recent experience is because some parents take time off work to raise children, and we don't want them to be disqualified from entering the workforce simply because their budgeting experience or their management and personnel and project management experience is not recent.
When we say recent, we leave it up to interpretation. We don't have a really set mind when we say recent. It should be reasonable, let's just say.
Well, the problem with that is if I left the workforce for 3-4 years to raise a child and then wanted a job and then saw the word recent, I might not apply because it's so vague. I might just find myself feeling that I don't qualify for this position. So I I really don't like the word recent, I'm sorry. I don't know what I recommend. So far, I'm just complaining. I don't have a solution, I just have a complaint. But I would open to my fellow commissioners for their thoughts on the matter.
If it were changed to relevant, then it would, maybe that would be a better word.
We can do that.
And then you could interview qualified applicants to see if you agree with their experience being relevant and meeting the requirements of the position. But the word recent really, it is not a good word for me.
So, sure, we can, Commissioner McGrabian, sure, we can do that. This language is not, it's from the class specification, it's transferred over from the approved class specification, which at some point was approved by this commission.
Maybe that's the position I approved and then changed my mind on
We can
after.
certainly look into it, and if the board wishes to revise it and to say relevant, we certainly can do that. Would that apply only to this job bulletin, because this is just a job bulletin, or do you prefer we just apply this on the class spec?
I would think it would apply to what the hiring authority wishes, because I mean, what you mentioned is also relevant in that you said, and I'm reading the job specs on page 38, analyzes public works related operations, processes, administrative issues. So like certain county jobs, government jobs, city jobs, they come on, they get trained, and there's a lot of templates. You sort of learn on the job as you go, and you familiarize yourself with certain processes. But certain jobs, you have to come in with the most recent level of education, experience. And in those circumstances, yeah, it is unfortunate that somebody may be dismayed to apply because they've been out of the workforce for the past 10, 15 years. So the question is, what does the hiring authority want? Because at the end of the day, we also don't want to put that onus on the city to say, we're just going to take you on, although you don't have, recent experience, and we're going to have to fit the bill to try to get you up to date, whereas you on your own may have been able to take some certification courses or something that would have brought you up to date, where when you're applying, you can say, yes, I've had this experience in the past, and very recently, I went to such and such course to, update my engineering experience, so to speak, right? So I think it depends on the hiring authority. What are they looking for? And that's a question for them. Are they comfortable in making it relevant, or does it have to be recent? And if so, why? Because I do know that there are a lot of jobs, government jobs, where you just come on, and if you're savvy, you can pick it up quickly and learn. And you may hire someone who's not savvy and has this beautiful glaring resume, and some of us who've hired big teams, and they just end up, and I see a smile from Ms. Adams, and they end up flopping. They need more help. They need more hand-holding. So that would be my input on this issue.
Chair Kazarian. I was just going to comment that if the word recent is removed, that flexibility still exists while not discouraging applicants 1 year of experience in Public Works Department administrative work involving budget management, et cetera. That would still give the appointing authority the discretion to decide between a couple of candidates as to whether one has more recent experience and therefore is more desirable, or
I think that's the key, the desirable. So if you want to leave it open-ended where you get a big pool, and then recent experience is a desirable, verbiage like that could be used as a desirable, right? Where you are narrowing your pool now.
Absolutely. You can still look at that. I'm sorry to interrupt, Commissioner. You can still look at it, but you're not making it a requirement to have someone who maybe doesn't. And the word recent is so vague, it could discourage someone who's been out of the workforce for 2-3 years, which may not be that big of a deal.
I like Ms. Varbetian's suggestion. I think that's an excellent suggestion. Commissioner Ream, did you want to say something?
Well, I have a procedural question, I think, for our attorney, which is that when the bulletin, I generally should reflect what the classification is. And so in addition to this possible change, I noticed that I think this is a well-written bulletin and it's perfect, but there's language in the bulletin that isn't in the classification. So there've been little changes. And I'm wondering at what point we shouldn't do that, that can, or can we, without agendizing it, can we amend the classification tonight? No, we can't. We have to agendize that.
We can't amend the classification because it's not before the commission, but if the change is not material, then we may be able to do that and bring back the classification at a later time so that they match. But if we're going to make a material change, for example, change education from a bachelor's degree to now a master's degree, then that's something that we would not be able to do tonight.
Okay.
Also, classification-related changes have to be negotiated if the employee is represented. We can't just go in there and change their job classifications and give them additional duties or have them underperform because we're gonna take away duties, because that will hinder their opportunity to grow within the city. The issue is, how do we open up our pool and not discourage people from applying? And I do agree with the chair and Ms. Varbretian, is that you use the word desirable for recent experience in public works management, or whatever it is that you're gonna do it, but you can break it up where people who have been out of the workforce are not discouraged from applying, and it still gives enough discretion to the hiring authority to use it as a desirable.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Of course.
If you want, you can come make a motion and approve it too. But you can, absolutely.
So when we're, us recruiters, analysts, we always work with the hiring department on any recruitment. We always share the applications, we discuss, we analyze the qualifications. We make sure the hiring authority and HR are on board together. Although it does say recent, they're always kept in the loop, because at the end of the day, they are the subject matter experts. And we are here to assist on a policy level. So as far as revising the experience, may I suggest that we just say 1 year of experience in Public Works Department administrative without making the recent desirable, because it may be misleading. Just leave it at that. Would that work?
I'm sorry, I wasn't suggesting that it be desirable. I'm just saying that you've essentially repeated what I was saying. So
Oh,
if there
I'm
was any
sorry.
confusion about what I said.
It was only
Okay.
I believe the issue is about the word recent,
Right.
right? So take the word recent out, and then
But do
we don't have an
rely
issue.
upon the hiring authority to also be in line with that? Because when you look at this is the thing, as a hiring authority, you know way more about what you're looking for than frankly 5 people sitting on a commission, just because you know exactly what the job is.
course.
Although we come in and we opine on certain things, the reality is that we can make all the changes here, but do we also want to hear from the hiring authority whether or not that is appropriate to do so?
We could certainly have Mr. Oganessian, our city engineer,
That would be great.
express his.
All of these times, all these good folks come and sit and then leave. But once in a while, here you are. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Organization.
Good evening, Chair Kazarian and members of the commission. We're perfectly fine with the removal of the word recent. As the hiring authority, we always look for skill sets that are also recent and applicable, as well as experience in the industry, whether it's a few years old to even a decade or 2 decades old. It all depends on how the interviewer does, the knowledge that they convey in the interview. And as the hiring authority, we've had pretty good success over the years, so I feel comfortable with the removal.
Wonderful, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Somebody is going to make a motion with whatever modification. So many people, made an input. I'm not going to impose on Commissioner Reed. So somebody on the left side of the aisle is going to make a motion now.
I will make a motion to approve with the amendment of removing the word recent from the experience portion of the job bulletin.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. Please. Mr. Kwan.
Commissioner McGravian,
Yes.
Commissioner Tamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
List cancellation, groundskeeper 1.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the item before the commission is a request to cancel the open eligible list for the Groundskeeper 1 position in the Community Services and Parks Department. This request is supported by authority from the City Charter and Civil Service Rules and Regulations, which state, eligible lists shall remain in force not longer than 2 years, nor less than 1 year, provided that the Commission may cancel any open list established from an examination which contains the names of not more than 3 persons whose names have been submitted for appointment and who have not been appointed. The current eligible list for Groundskeeper 1 was established on September 6, 2023, and originally included 11 candidates. Since then, the Community Services and Parks Department has hired 6 candidates from the list. The remaining candidates either declined consideration or were not selected for the position. The department is requesting that the list be canceled to allow for a new recruitment, which would attract candidates who are better qualified and currently interested in the position, reducing the likelihood of withdrawals or waivers. Establishing a fresh list will better meet the department's needs in a timely and efficient way. Therefore, we respectfully request the Commission approve the cancellation of the open eligible list for Groundskeeper 1. We have our HR analyst here, along with the Park Services Administrator, Chris Peplow, who will be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions?
No questions.
Wow. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the request.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Commissioner McGravian,
Yes.
Commissioner Tamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Public hearing probation period.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, today we are presenting a proposed amendment to the resolution designating certain classifications to serve a 12-month probationary period. This resolution periodically is reviewed and updated by the Civil Service Commission, applies to all executive management, executive positions, management positions, mid-management employees. Additionally, it includes certain non-management roles tied to public safety or that involve extensive training, which also requires a 12-month probationary period. The last amendment to this resolution was on November 8th, 2022. The current proposed revisions reflect necessary updates, including additions, deletions, and title changes for specific classifications since November 8th, 2022. Under Rule 4, Section 2B of the City Civil Service Rules and Regulations, the Commission has the authority to assign a 12-month probationary period to designated classifications. The public hearing has been duly noticed as required. Therefore, we recommend that the Commission conduct the public hearing to review the designated classifications and approve and adopt the amended resolution.
Any questions, any issues with the adoption of the resolution?
I just have one question for HR. Is this periodically done, annually, or as we approve new classifications or change titles?
We try to bring a resolution before you at least every 24 months.
Mr. Chair, can I just say that since this is a public hearing, we need to announce that the public hearing is now open?
Okay. And so then the public hearing is now open. And I don't see anybody from the public here. I don't know if anybody's joining by other means of communication. Mr. Kwan?
We do not have any calls.
Okay.
So we are closing the public
So we
hearing.
are closing the public hearing now. Thank you, Ms. Barbette. Okay, so we are closing the public hearing. Is there a requirement for us to have a discussion about it?
Now you may continue to have a discussion and
Okay,
possibly adopt a resolution.
okay. So, discussion?
Yeah, so, okay, so it's done at the minimum every 24 months.
Yes.
And then, is this the norm for the 12-month probationary period for other city jurisdictions, not county, but city?
Other city jurisdiction,
Local city jurisdictions, do they also have a 12-month probationary period for this, for similar classifications?
they do for some and not for others.
Okay,
So it does depend. For executive classifications and upper management classifications, the standard is a 12-month probationary period. Within the jurisdiction, there is some judgment call around how much on-the-job training or training involved in order to meet the minimum expectations for the role that falls within the purview of the hiring department. And so in some instances, we may be the equivalent of other jurisdictions, and in others, particularly larger organizations, their probationary period may be 6 months.
yeah, so I know, and thank you for pointing that out, in the county, it is 6 months, even for mid-management and management positions. So my question is, since we have mid-management positions here, and it's obviously favorable to the employer to have the 12-month probationary period, does it hinder recruitment when you have a longer probationary period? Or does it not even affect the recruitment numbers?
Okay, so it has been my experience that the probationary period does not impact our recruitment. We have been looking at a lot of data over the last 24 months. Our cycle time to hire is more narrow. Our turnover rate has declined from double digits to single digits, so it has not been impactful in that regard. As it relates to employees coming from a larger region to the city of Glendale, I would say that the one-year probationary period is mostly required because this city operates very differently from other municipalities, and the party really does need that 12-month period to really be able to run on the ground independent without leaning on others.
Got it. Thank you.
So there's about 450 positions here, roughly, because I just counted one of the pages, it had 51 listed, and there's 10 pages here. Some of them are not complete pages. My question is, since this is done periodically, every 24 months, as I believe you stated, so did we have these 450 positions 2 years ago also that I don't remember. I've been here so long, I don't remember anything, frankly. I don't remember us approving, and maybe we did, a 12-month probationary period for some 400-plus positions in the city. And they are many, many positions. I mean, the only thing I notice here is the assistant police chief. I suppose the assistant police chief, if he was here, I would ask him, was he on a one-year probation and how did it feel? But he's not here anymore. But there's a lot of positions here, and I'm not an employment attorney, and I don't know anything about employment law other than my common sense, which isn't much. So I don't know. Are you telling me, Commissioner Hatamian, that in other cities or municipalities or jurisdictions, the probationary period is 6 months?
It's shorter, and the jurisdiction decides whether they want it 6 months or 12 months. And as Ms. Adams pointed out, Glendale does operate a little bit differently in that sense. So that part is okay. I think what we're looking at, for me, when I'm looking at this list, because I'm not 100% familiar with all the title classifications, and to have so many, I don't know how up to date it is, and I take HR's word for it that it is up to date in ensuring that all classifications that are in management are included to avoid disparity. Obviously, this is, the guy who's negotiating with the unions all the time, And so I want to make sure that if you have one title classification in Public Works that's mid-management and another one in, I don't know, say Glendale Police Department, that they're both included. And so it's a very comprehensive list. And so to have us, let's say, for example, verify the completeness of this list, it's a little bit difficult, right? So we're taking HR's word that it is complete and it is fair across the board. And it's inclusive of all the level of management that needs to be included on this list. And like I said, it's very favorable to the employer to have a 12-month probationary period versus 6 months, because it gives you a better chance to fully evaluate that employee. So it's favorable to the city. That part is great. It's just a matter of, is everybody included in here as they should be?
Right,
Well-
and so 2 years ago, when we brought this resolution before you, it was just as extensive.
Okay.
There have been a couple of new classifications added because they were added over the 2-year period. They didn't exist 2 years ago. To another point that you made about it containing hundreds of classifications, within the Human Resources Department, we are currently going through another exercise of identifying classifications that have not been filled in some time and may be obsolete. So we are working with the hiring departments, we are working with our labor partners to come up with a list that we will be eliminating from. And so I suspect that you will notice when this resolution comes before you the next time that it will be shorter in length. And over the period that we're working on this exercise, we can certainly bring the commission periodic updates if you would like to see that.
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. Very briefly, and I see that this list is alphabetical, and on the first page, my attention was drawn to assistant fire chief, assistant fire manager, marshal, assistant general manager. It's clearly across the board, and then I come to the P's, and I look at police officer specifications, and we have everything from police captain all the way down to a police sergeant, police lieutenant, police officer, police custody officer. So I don't see the list to be limited to a mid-level personnel. It's certainly a police captain is not a mid-level personnel. It's a higher than a mid-level. So it's really all across in so many ways.
Except for public safety.
Except-
Because if you can recall, in public safety, there must be a 1-year
Okay, so
probationary period.
okay, so then that one is is clearly not something that we ought to scrutinize, because as you just said, public safety is 1 year. So, but when you go to others, community development supervisor and community service officer. Well, a supervisor and a service officer clearly are not the same, and you have communications manager. Well, I don't know if it's the same. Community development supervisor, community forest supervisor, community relations coordinator, community service officer, community service manager, community services supervisor. It seems to me it's not limited to. You're correct. It's employer friendly, but who am I to decide? Unless, look, if it's not contrary to fair employment laws, then it's at the discretion of the employer, and that's what the employer wants. I don't feel comfortable taking the role of an advocate for an employee against an employer, or for an employer against an employee. I view my role here as objective as I can make it be at all times. So I'll defer to those of you who work in this field, per se, if you think there's an issue. If there's no issue that is a legal issue, then I urge us to approve it.
I'm in agreement with the chairman on that point too, but to me, it would be easier, because in the past, every classification has been approved with, if either it says a year or by default at 6 months. And so it'd be easier for us to assess this if we just saw what was changed, because probably
We do see
98%
that.
of what's in here is already in a classification with a probation period of 1 year, I bet.
The change is in purple and it's underlined.
Okay.
There's only a few of them, like 5.
Right, and so that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, the changes in purple. Okay, so
Yes.
the purple means what? These are newly added?
Newly.
Okay, let's look at the newly added. There are only like 3 or 4. Electrical engineering manager is added. Parking and police services administrator is added. And looks like police services officer, police services supervisor, power engineering manager, and that's all she wrote.
And Commissioner, let's not forget, anytime we create a new classification, we're obligated to meet and confer with the unions,
Right,
who are the advocates for their member employees.
thank goodness
And
for
so
them.
while we
Okay,
do have a system that seems to favor the employer, the unions have a voice in that decision. So,
and the unions probably feel that it also serves their collective interests of the membership. I don't know, I can't speak for them, but they have no objection to this.
no objection.
Chair Kazarian,
Yeah.
the good news is you do have an employment attorney sitting to your left.
There you go. So there you go.
Who handles this issue often.
Okay.
And the way I look at it is, and by the way, school districts oftentimes also have 6 months.
Okay.
So public employment in California is, public employees in California have a property right to employment. So if you want to terminate them, you have a huge, expensive process. And it has to be, for a cause, and you go to the Civil Service Commission, you come to us, and it's a very big process to terminate an employee. When an employee is terminated from the probationary list, it's a no-cause termination. It's easy, quick. Sometimes you get sued. That's where I come in.
Yeah.
But it's faster, and the process is faster and much more cost-effective for the employer. While it's cost-effective for the employer, I did heed Ms. Adams's comment that sometimes employees do need more time to get acclimated to their position so that their heads are not cut off at 6 months. We don't like you, you're not good here, and we're off with you. They're given a longer period of time to prove themselves. So in that way, it does help the employee to sort of, first 2 weeks, I always say you learn where the bathrooms are and which one you like. So it takes time to learn the entity, and with the city of Glendale being so different than other municipalities, it might help the employee to have that longer period. And so those are the two different, that's the difference that I look at. Having a longer probation just allows for a quicker termination.
Ms. Warbetin?
It may be helpful if I read the 2 rules to you that's under Section 2. A states 6-month probationary periods. All classifications will normally have 6-month service, 6 service month probationary periods as designated by the commission. B states the commission shall designate by resolution any classification not having a 6 service month probationary period as having a 12-month probationary period. So the default is 6. You're identifying 5 new positions as having 12.
In addition to the list, the current list.
We're reapproving the current list and approving for the first time the current 5.
If you take no action, the current list will remain as is.
Which is a 1 year anyway.
Which is
The
1 year.
current list is 1 year anyway.
If we do,
If you do nothing today, the current list remains. All you're doing is adding the 5 or 6 additional positions.
Right.
And those positions made sense to have 12 months to me.
Being in the private sector, I always, when I take on somebody, I say, okay, 90-day probationary period, and it's never enough, and then I'm stuck thinking, do I want to get rid of somebody or do I want to keep them, fully knowing that it's going to take them longer to understand what it is that I want from them over the long course of employment. So I don't have a problem with the 1 year. I think I really like the idea that, an employer is not going to be forced to cut out an employee and not give them a real opportunity to really learn. Some of these positions, look, I'm looking at one, power engineering manager. I don't know the first thing about it, but when you say manager, in order for someone to be comfortable in their shoes in a management position, they need to feel, everything and all the moving parts, and that might take a while. Police services officer, I don't know. Maybe that's enough for 6 months. But am I going to sit here and, start speculating? I'm not going to speculate. I don't have any questions. When somebody makes a motion, I will approve it. If nobody makes a motion, I'll ask the city attorney, our advisor. If nobody wants to make a motion, maybe I can make a motion then.
Can I
But
get
then I
in
need a second.
one last question before we make the motion. So the management positions, I think it's easy to determine, right? So you have the executive management, mid-management. So, but that leaves the non-management positions, which you just pointed out too, Garo, also, which the city looks to determine whether or not the 12 months is appropriate, right? And they'll extend it, because we know the default is 6 months, right? And so there's non-management positions where, by this list, we're saying the default for you is 6 months, but we're gonna extend it.
But there
But there
isn't,
isn't any.
there isn't
There
here.
isn't. There's the public safety one,
Okay, so
which is already 1 year.
So my question is, the term in the bulletin on page 45, the memo,
45.
what test does the city use when they are putting non-management or non-management positions on the list? Are there any? Did I miss that part? Are there any non-management positions on the list currently?
There are some,
Okay,
and the HR analyst makes that determination in concert with the hiring authority, the
okay,
department. And what they will talk about is, what is everything that that party needs to learn and be able to do independently within that 6-month period? Or is that training window longer than 6 months for someone to feel comfortable and be able to perform that job without failing? And so they dialogue on that and decide together. And then, when this position is being created, HR takes that information to the bargaining agent, and there is another opportunity to discuss if they believe that 12 months is fair or not. Notwithstanding all of that, if the classification never makes it to this list, it's not executive management, and it's not public safety, and the commission decides it should not be added because that is what the commission decides. If a person is underperforming and they're not going to pass probation, then I, as the Chief Human Resources Officer, by your rules, have the authority to extend that probation by another 6 months if I believe that that person could benefit from the additional 6 months in order to be successful.
got it. So there may be other classifications in different departments who may have a probationary period that's 6 months, and some, let's say in law enforcement, that are non-management, that may have a probationary that are 12 months, that are within the same rank, so to speak, as far as pay scale is concerned and pay structure is concerned, right? And
Yes.
just so by the mere fact that you work for a certain department, you may be getting paid the same amount, and one may have a probationary period that's 12 months versus another who may have 6 months, but also HR has the discretion to extend the 6 months if they deem it to be appropriate.
That's true.
Got it. Thank you.
So I wanted to clarify, when I said there's only management positions or sworn positions on this list, I meant for the new ones we are
Right.
to approve.
Yeah, just the 5. The
Right.
5, I've identified 5 new purple line positions, and it's electrical engineering manager, parking and police services administrator, and then power engineering manager, And then you have two others, which is in public safety, police services officer, police services supervisor, which is also management, in my opinion. So, and hearing Ms. Barbetian reminding us that if we don't do anything, all but the 5 will remain on the list as a 1-year probationary period. I think we've put enough time in this matter, and I'd ask that one of us make a motion to approve this resolution.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Please.
I move to approve this resolution.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. We have on page 55 a signature line for the chairperson. Does Chair Gazarian need to sign this?
That always happens after the hearing. Mr. Kwan grabs me and makes me sign these things.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
That's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Next item, please.
Reports and information, employee job performance evaluations, past due aging report.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you is an informational report on performance evaluation and the return status for the City of Glendale's employees. As you can see, again, the response rate is very good, and there are no evaluations on the second notice list. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Any questions? No questions. All right. Thank you. Next item, please.
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Any comments?
No comment.
No comment.
No comments. Very good. Okay. Next item. There is no next item. Somebody make a motion, in other words. Commissioner Ream, you will make the motion.
I move that we adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Lucy.
See you in December.